Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I will show you how to destroy the modern defense extremely easily. So I'm doing this video just to advertise my chess camp. On this Sunday, 1st December, 19 o'clock Paris time, I will actually be holding a chess camp about calculation. It will last around 1 hour 30, and for this first one, for this first training camp, there will be actually very low entry fees, only €10 per person. So if you want to enter, just go for it. And if you enter this one, the next training camp, you will actually have the same price as this one. And then, we will be doing that for all the upcoming training camps. So send me an email, everything is here on the screen. If you need some more information, just go check out the link in the description. There will be a link directly to my blog, and then you will have absolutely all the information. Now let's just start with the modern defense. So I played the modern defense with the black pieces, extremely often. I really trained hard on that, and I more or less become an expert with that opening. I have more than 2,000 games, all combined with my Chess and Chess.com accounts. So I do have a lot of experience, and I still have a win rate of 70%, which is great. But this is not because of the opening. Sometimes when I play against higher rated players, they just kill me in 20 moves because the modern defense is actually losing by force. So e4 with the white pieces, g6, and there is only one setup with the white pieces which is absolutely crushing. It is just to take the center with d4, bishop g7, and knight c3. Why do we bring up the pieces from the queen side so early on? The reason is very simple. What we want to do is play with bishop e3, then queen d2, castles, f3, and this is basically killing, and then we will start an attack on the king side. Let me just show you what happens if black goes for a transposition to the Pirc defense with knight f6. If they go back with knight f6, it will be a lot easier for us to go with queen d2, bishop h6. Now it's important to start with f3, because if you go for queen d2, there are some lines with knight g4, and you can still play, bishop g5, but then there are some lines with h6, bishop h4, g5, you go back, then e5, and it's already not that clear. You're a little bit losing, your advantage and your initiative. So just start with f3. Of course, if you're feeling all right in that position, just go for it. But if you go with f3, you're just, getting straight to the point. Now, if they just castle, you go queen d2. Usually, they will start an attack on the queen side with a6, b5, but you don't really care about that. You're having bishop h6, h4, and then you just open up the king and you just win easily. h4, g4, h5, and this is a very straightforward way to win. If you don't know yet how to use this plan, just join my masterclasses, because I will be talking about these positions extremely deeply. Now, let's assume they just go for the new way to play the modern defense, which is c6. Now it's actually very smart. But why? Because when you go queen d2, they can go b5, which is the idea that you want to go for with the black pieces. Basically the attack on the queen side. But then you want castle on the queen side is just a loss of time. You just go g4. Now b4 is never a problem. You just go back to d1, f2, and queen a5 or queen b6 is no longer attacking you because you didn't castle. Because you don't need to castle. Why? Because they already played knight f6. So that is why they will usually answer with something very passive like h6 or h5. If they do so, you just go h4, and this is all right. You just play the moves that we will see if they go for the best move, which is queen a5. You just keep developing and just bring the pieces until you completely wide open the king side. And eventually, when the king side is open and the king won't be able to castle anymore, you will have moves like e5 or d5 to weaken, the pawn structure. Because you didn't castle yet, then actually you don't have to fear this attack. b4 is never a threat. Sometimes it even happens that this pawn becomes a weakness, and you can attack this pawn with some a3 moves, and the pawn is pinned. If you take, the queen is lost. So this is basically what happens. So bringing out the knight so early is never a good option with the black pieces. The best practical option is to go with a6. Here you can go queen d2. All right, b5. So this is really the best way to play with the black pieces. And now you have three approaches. You have the classical approach, which is f3, and now it's making some sense, even though knight f6 isn't a threat, because one day when they will go bishop b7 and b4, you will be able to move the knight away without losing the e-pawn. The second option is just to castle queenside, and if bishop b7, you go f3 just to defend against the b4 threat. Or there is a very, very, very good approach for classical chess, not online chess, classical chess, and that is a3. The agent doesn't like a3. It says it's the third best move or fourth best move, but it doesn't matter. You still have an advantage because now what you will be doing is very, very simple. F3, long castles, and b4 is never an option. It's taking forever for c5, b4 to happen. This is what I recommend for a classical game, but if you go for f3, then it's still alright for a classical game. Why do I mention it? Because when you go for classical games type of moves, you basically put on some long psychological pressure. So f3 is technically the best, and then if you still go for the same thing, then it doesn't matter. Bishop b7, h5, and they have to deal with that trade. Let's just show you the game, for example, that I played against 2200 FIDE at the Luxembourg team championship. Yeah, and basically my opponent played bishop b7, I played long castles, knight d7, which is the best approach with black. c5 is coming, now h4. And why h4? Because if I just play knight f3, then he would just go c5, and he's faster on the queen side than I am on the king side. So I played h4. Now, he played h6, he should have gone c5, and if c5, I thought about just letting take, because if he takes, then it's actually alright, and if he goes for a3, I can even just take and go knight d5, and if he, okay, let's just say, for example, that, b4, takes, knight d5, I'm putting pressure on that pawn, and if, for example, something like a5, then he's no longer playing queen a5, and he's no longer advancing with this pawn, and I might just actually take. He's never really in time to go e6, so he has to take back. If he takes back that way, the position is completely fine. Bishop b5, whatever, f4, knight f3. The position is just getting wide open. e6 is never a threat, and anytime he's taking there, let's just pretend he's taking, then actually there is a problem on the e file, so bishop c4, bishop b3 might actually appear one day. There's still a problem on b4, so I'm not really scared of that because I'm opening up the position pretty fast. Now, second thing, let's say after h4 they go for the classical answer, which is to play h5 or h6. If they go for h5, which is the best answer, you can actually go knight h3, not knight f3, but knight h3. The reason is pretty simple. You want to keep yourself the chance of playing f3. Now, in that case, there's probably knight g5, which is completely playable. And if they go for knight g4, I would assume you don't really care about that. You go bishop d3, and if they take, you just take back with the pawn, and I don't have to mention that f7 becomes a weak spot. You can still play d5 or e5, depending on your taste. Some problems. Probably e5, by the way, just to start putting pressure on this pawn structure. Actually, when he starts moving the h-pawn, you can just tell that the whole structure on the king side is weaker. If the pawn was on h7, the position would be alright. But now what about h6? h6 is doing the same. I mean, it's stopping the attack. If h5, I go g5, and now knight h3, knight g5 is no longer an idea. Because, yeah, this is something that I forgot to mention, but the main idea of knight h3 is to jump on g5. And if you go that way, now he's more or less attacking there. And, it's just not the same, because you want to keep yourself the chance of playing f3, and play very solidly. You're still better, so you don't really care about that. Hopefully you just see the board. Yes, you do. Now, h4, h6, which was played in the game. Now h5, he did absolutely nothing with the move h6. He just wasted a move. And after h5, g5, I can play f4, which is opening up the king side completely. But why is it that strong? Because one day, we don't know yet when or where or whatever, but one day when he will start to attack on the queen side, I would actually be counterattacking on the king side, and because the king side is way more open than the queen side, he will always suffer first from some tactical and, attacking problems, So I took back, and now he played e5. Of course, I calculated the move bishop d4, but after he takes back, there is e5 fork, and the line that I calculated was takes, and queen g5 check to eventually try to trade some pieces off the board. But I thought queen f2, and I just see, by the way, that this is a game that was played by Turkan Mamedyarova against Alexander Chernayev. Okay, I know actually Chernayev, so it's all right. And okay, and basically I will go knight f3. I see that the game went queen c5, queen f4, knight gf6, bishop e2. Okay, Mamedjarova played a little bit too slowly. Probably knight e5 first. It feels like you could play this position a lot faster than what she did, but it's all right. Okay. Anyway, the engine, by the way, says that here, bishop d4, I should go for, let me just see. Takes, and queen b4. And if you take, you're up a pawn, but I can actually still play knight f3 and e5, which is pretty funny in a way. Yeah, and now this is a solid +1.5. So knight f3, e5, and okay, and there will be some problems here. Okay, it's all right. And c5 is never an option. You just move back, and d6 became a weakness without even mentioning the d5 square. So I wouldn't be surprised if I'm already clearly winning here. Yeah, the engine says it's completely winning for white. All right. But e5 takes, knight f3, and after this move I did a mistake, which is more a concentration mistake. I knew that I was completely winning, and here the move that I wanted to go for is takes. And what's funny is I completely overlooked something extremely simple. So after pawn takes, what I wanted to go for is queen e3, attacking the queen. You can't close the file, and if you take there, which is funny, and actually, okay, you can pause for, I just win the queen, yeah. But what I overlooked is that I didn't realize that once the queen moves away, that I'm just better here. And the reason why I'm better is because I have queen g3 according to the engine, which is winning a pawn. This is something very funny. This is not something simple, to be honest, but this is the only way for me to immediately win something. If you take on f4, I just take there, I'm attacking the rook, and if you move the rook, I win the h-pawn, and this should be winning. Of course it is, I'm up a pawn, and it's almost my turn to play. I have a pass h-pawn, the d5 square, I can probably still, do something like that and start some attacks or whatever, Feels like after 95 trades, I can sacrifice my bishop and put the other rook here with some checks and some attacks. Some very straightforward tactics, but I played knight e5, which the engine doesn't like, but I'm still all right. And here we arrive in a position that I already analyzed in some other, in some other video. You can go check out my most recent uploads about calculation in chess. And yeah, so I will basically stop here because now we are no longer in the opening, but here it's +3, so it's basically all right. All right, thank you very much. See you in the future. Take care.